This CCTV footage raised concerns in the investigation of missing woman Manijeh Starren, but as they dug deeper, investigators were haunted by what they uncovered. This case takes us to St. Paul in Minnesota, a quiet and historic capital city that was shaken by two gruesome discoveries in 2023. In April that same year, 33-year-old mum of three, Manijeh Starren, suddenly disappeared. Mani struggled with drug addiction and mental health issues, so when she failed to show to a drug treatment centre as planned, and her family hadn't heard from her since the 18th of April, Mani's dad reported her missing on the 1st of May 2023. He mentioned Mani's struggles and how when he last spoke with her, she seemed paranoid and scared of her boyfriend. The father of one of Mani's children, it's unclear if he's the father of all three of her children, also found her silence deeply unusual. Mani would never go more than 8 hours without calling to check in on her son. So when all contact suddenly stopped on the 21st of April, he also grew worried, especially after what she had told him. She told him that her boyfriend once put a rope around her neck after things had gotten out of hand, and she ran from her apartment. But he was under the impression that the incident she was referring to had been weeks prior. Heartbreakingly, the CCTV footage captured that same day, on the 21st of April, may suggest otherwise. On the evening of the 21st of April, Mani was captured on CCTV running down the hallway of her St. Paul apartment building, with a man chasing close behind. Moments later, that same man forced her back inside between 5:55 and 6 p.m. Mani was never seen leaving her apartment again. This man was her boyfriend, 41-year-old Joseph Jorgenson. For the next week, Joseph continued as if nothing had ever happened. He didn't report her missing. Instead, he was captured on surveillance, repeatedly coming and going from her apartment, a total of 28 times. Finally, at 4:55 p.m, on the 28th of April, he was seen leaving with a suitcase and 2 duffel bags, loading them into a pickup truck registered to his roommate before driving home to his own apartment. Weeks went by, and Joseph continued his daily life as though Mani had simply disappeared by choice. He told friends that she'd been admitted to a mental health facility, all while using Mani's EBT card to make purchases. One example is on the 9th of May, he bought a variety of cleaning products from Dollar Tree, which I'll list on the screen, and on the 11th of May, he visited Dollar Tree again to buy more of the same or similar products. But no matter how much cleaning he did, it wasn't enough to hide what he had done. By the 15th and 16th of May, the building manager began receiving complaints of a foul stench seeping through the hallways of Joseph's apartment building. It was described as the unmistakable smell of something dead. So a couple of days later, on the 18th of May, the building manager and a maintenance employee gained entry to Joseph's apartment to inspect. It's reported that Joseph was verbally hostile, and he denied entry into the very bedroom where the smell seemed to be coming from. Joseph and his roommate were given a week to clean the apartment, to which they complied. Very shortly after, the same staff members saw Joseph dragging large duffel bags out of his apartment. They later admitted to each other it looked like he was carrying a body. Cell phone records would later confirm that Joseph then drove to an storage unit in Woodbury, a unit that had been rented in his roommate's name just days earlier, on the 5th of May 2023. During this time, investigators were actively searching for answers in Mani Starren's disappearance. They spoke with one of her neighbours, who recalled seeing Mani with a black eye and red marks around her neck. When she asked Mani if she'd been assaulted, Mani quietly admitted that she had. The neighbour offered to call the police, but Mani refused, saying it would only make things worse. As evidence slowly mounted, all signs began pointing towards Joseph Jorgenson, but detectives still needed definitive proof tying him to Mani's disappearance. Officers obtained Joseph's phone number from Mani's apartment manager, who also confirmed that he was a frequent visitor. Then on the 24th of May, the same manager made a crucial discovery. The CCTV footage showed Mani running down the hallway, with Joseph chasing close behind and forcing her back into her apartment. The following day, on the 25th of May, investigators executed a search warrant at Mani's apartment, and what they found was deeply disturbing. The normally spotless home was in complete disarray. There was blood in the living room and kitchen, the TV screen was cracked, and the microwave door was shattered. In the bedroom, a bedsheet had been partially pulled back, exposing a large hole cut in the mattress, and there was red stains near the foot of the bed. There was also signs that someone had attempted to clean up the blood. Detectives were now convinced that someone had been seriously injured, or worse, killed, inside Mani's apartment. And their suspicions were only strengthened further by what they uncovered in Joseph's text messages and internet searches. 2 weeks before Mani's disappearance, on the 5th of April, Joseph sent her a chilling text. "And you owe me too, because you called the cops on me 2 times. Very clear I was of that being punishable by hanging. I'm giving you this plea bargain opportunity, so you're welcome." In another message, he wrote, "Hope you die of a kidney infection, you bitch, terrible mother." And on the day Mani vanished, Joseph searched for jugular, followed in the coming days by searches like, "What do police do with a missing persons report?" and "How to clear cookies from an Android phone." Each new discovery drew investigators closer to confirming what they already feared, that Mani Starren was no longer alive, and that Joseph Jorgenson was the one responsible. 2 days after searching Mani's apartment, on the 27th of May, investigators turned their attention to the storage unit in Woodbury that had been recently rented under the name of Joseph's roommate. The moment they arrived, they were met with a powerful, unmistakable odour, the stench of decomposing flesh. Inside the unit, officers discovered a large cooler wrapped in plastic, a blue duffel bag, and a small carry-on suitcase, all matching the bags that Joseph was seen carrying from Mani's apartment on the 28th of April. And on top of the cooler sat a green tote filled with the same cleaning products that Joseph had purchased from Dollar Tree using Mani's EBT card. What authorities would uncover inside the cooler and the bags would haunt them forever. Inside was the dismembered body of 34-year-old Manijeh Starren, meticulously wrapped in layers of saran wrap or cling film and sealed with multiple bags. This discovery just confirmed what her family had feared all along. Mani hadn't disappeared on her own. She had been brutally murdered. With the overwhelming amount of evidence, a SWAT team raided Joseph Jorgenson's apartment on the 25th of June 2023. But Joseph barricaded himself inside his bedroom, started a fire in his closet, and attempted to grab an officer's rifle during the standoff. Eventually, after deploying a chemical irritant, officers forced entry and took him into custody. Inside Joseph's apartment, investigators found a large pool of blood near the closet, the same closet that Joseph had set alight, along with biological matter on the carpet and fresh maggot activity. 2 keys were also recovered which matched the padlocks for the storage unit. Joseph actually wasn't the only person inside the apartment at the time either. His roommate was also present, as well as a female, both of which were removed without incident. It could easily be assumed that the roommate must have known something. After all, the stench of the decomposition had filled the apartment for weeks. But when questioned, he told officers that he'd suffered with a traumatic brain injury that had damaged his sense of smell. He also claimed to have very little contact with Joseph or any of the women who frequently came and went from the apartment. The woman removed from the apartment had multiple bruises and scratches, as well as red marks on her neck. She told investigators that Joseph had strangled and threatened to kill her, allegedly saying, "The neighbours won't hear you scream." It was chilling, and it raised an even darker question. Could this woman have been his 3rd victim if police hadn't intervened? You see, while Joseph was in custody, investigators uncovered something that would prove even more disturbing. Another victim. A victim from 2 years prior. A tip that proved vital came into Minnesota human trafficking tip line from a concerned citizen worried for the welfare of 33-year-old Fanta Xayavong. The caller reported that Fanta had once been in a romantic but abusive relationship with Joseph Jorgenson and that they had lost contact with her. Fanta went missing in July 2021, but she seemingly wasn't reported missing until May 2023. Like Mani, Fanta also struggled with addiction and was a mother of 2. Investigators soon confirmed that she too had been romantically involved with Joseph Jorgenson around the time she vanished, immediately raising fears that she may have met the same fate. Those fears only grew when detectives uncovered a text message that Joseph had sent to a friend boasting, "I legit broke my hand on her skull last week." At the time of her disappearance, Fanta Xayavong had been living with Joseph in Shoreview, Minnesota. Between July and September 2021, neighbours began complaining of a horrible odour coming from their home. The smell was so strong that it lingered for months, but no one could have imagined what had happened inside. After Joseph eventually moved out, a cleaning crew entered the property and noticed that the bedroom carpet had been completely removed. Beneath it, they found a dark stain on the wooden floorboards and reported that a foul smell still filled the air. The investigation into Fanta's disappearance later led authorities to another storage unit, this one rented under a friend's name in Coon Rapids. On the 6th of July 2023, detectives opened the unit and made another horrifying discovery. Inside a styrofoam cooler and large plastic totes was the dismembered body of 33-year-old Fanta Xayavong, with her hands still bound behind her back. Forensic testing confirmed that Joseph Jorgenson's DNA was found on the tape used to restrain her. When questioned in court, Joseph described both murders in graphic, chilling detail. He recounted that around the 1st of September 2021, he and Fanta had gotten into a drunken argument that turned violent. Joseph admitted to beating Fanta until she stopped moving, believing that she had only passed out, but when he checked for a pulse, she was already dead. He then dismembered her body and hid it in the storage unit in Coon Rapids. In court, Joseph stated, "I was very drunk at the time, and yes, in the heat of the moment, I was, yes, attempting to kill her." He told the court during his confession, "I did feel bad about it immediately afterwards, but my intent at the time was to kill her." Then, 2 years later, on the 21st of April 2023, Joseph relayed how history repeated itself. During an argument with Manijeh Starren, she told him to leave her apartment. He became enraged and placed her in a chokehold, strangling her until she stopped breathing. He then used a long razor blade to dismember her body, before moving her remains to his own apartment. Actions later confirmed by CCTV footage showing him carrying the duffel bags out of Mani's apartment. When neighbours began complaining about the foul smell coming from his apartment, Joseph relocated Mani's remains to the storage unit in Woodbury, where they were finally discovered weeks later.
Mr. Jorgenson, is there anything you'd like to say?
I'd just like to say that I truly am sorry. I want to say especially to the family and especially to the children of both Mani and Fanta. I am very, very sorry. That's all.
In the end, Joseph Jorgenson accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to 2 counts of second-degree intentional murder.
You had a good childhood, your parents remained married, and you had a loving and supportive relationship with them. They provided you with a good education and a good family structure. You were never placed out of home as a juvenile. You were never physically or sexually abused. You had no childhood trauma affecting you in your adulthood. You graduated from high school, never diagnosed with any learning disabilities. You were never suspended or expelled from school. You attended private college and graduated with a bachelor's degree, and you were employed for 13 years in a major financial institution. Yet you inexplicably committed the most gruesome and heinous of crimes I have ever known.
On the 28th of February 2025, the judge addressed the court, expressing that he wished he could impose a life sentence. But as part of the agreement, Joseph was sentenced to 40 years in prison for each murder, to be served consecutively. With good behaviour though, he could be eligible for supervised release after 26 and a half years, serving the remainder of a sentence under state supervision. Also, as part of the plea deal, prosecutors dismissed additional charges of arson, threats of violence, and disarming an officer, all which stemmed from his violent standoff during his arrest. Joseph's actions left Mani's family with painful, unanswered questions. Questions that no sentence could ever resolve.
What haunts me most is wondering why. If Joe was so angry that Manny asked him to leave her apartment, why didn't he just leave? It was her apartment, her space, and she had every right to ask him to go. I will never understand why he made the choice to hurt her instead.
Mani had been pursuing a nursing degree, a dream inspired by her natural instinct to care for others. She put her studies on hold to focus on caring for her son.
One thing that makes this tragedy even harder to bear is knowing that Manny told me she wanted to be an organ donor. If anything ever happened to her, she wanted to give her life to others, even in death. That was also stolen from her. Her selfishness and desire to help others could have saved lives, but even that choice was taken from her by this heinous crime.
Fanta's sister also spoke in court, saying he didn't just take Fanta's life, he destroyed the lives of her children, her family, and everyone who loved her. Justice may have been served, but for the families of Mani Starren and Fanta Xayavong, the scars will last a lifetime.
Thankfully, cases like this are extremely rare, but they are reminders to all of us that monsters can be real.